Outbound to the junction from downtown 16 to O'Hare 50, heavy from Kimball to the extension. On the inbound, pockets of delays from St. Charles into the Circle. Thorndale to the Post Office 45, outbound 50, heavy from Saratoga 25th Avenue. Inbound Stevenson 55 to Lakeshore Drive an hour, heavy from Harlan to Kedzie, slow from Ashland to the Dan Ryan. Outbound 255 from Lakeshore Drive at 40, sluggish from Damon to Cicero. Inbound Dan Ryan 95 to downtown 30 minutes, stop and go from the Stevenson. Outbound at 15, no delays. Amity Manzano, and that's traffic on AM 560, The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Your official Chicagoland weather forecast from the 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning Weather Center. Our meteorologist, Steve Williams.
Windy, periods of rain today, the high 64. Clouds and breezy tonight and a low 45. Cloudy, breezy, and cool tomorrow. Shower in spots, high 51. And then partly sunny, breezy on Wednesday, the high near 58. I'm Steve Williams on AM 560, The Answer.
57 at O'Hare. Next news, 8:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Don't forget that you can watch Chicago's Morning Answer on the Income Store live video stream every morning at 560theanswer.com.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. A lot of activity on Saturday. You had,
Bernie's back.
Yeah, that was secondary. Obviously, the big news on Saturday was the National Period Day rallies.
Oh, yeah.
59 rallies, including D.C., rallying for against menstrual inequity and for, I guess, menstrual justice.
And some of the signs that they brought out, it was not just women, but men, too, holding signs that said, period proud. Another one, arm schools with tampons, not guns. Another one, I already have 7 periods to worry about at school. I don't need another one.
Can you arm schools with tampons and guns? Are they mutually exclusive? Well, I'll tell you, I menstruated on Saturday in solidarity.
I knew you would.
And then I was all worn out. I could barely pay attention to the hours-long rally that Bolshevik Bernie had put together by his friends, AOC and Michael Moore, the Not Dead Yet rally for Bernie there in Queens. And
25,000 people were there. It's pretty impressive.
Oh, it's very impressive. And Michael Moore kicked off the festivities.
I remember asking Bernie back then, what exactly is a democratic socialist? And he said, well, it's very simple. It's what the Democratic Party used to be.
It's an infectious laugh he has.
It's what Franklin Roosevelt did.
Yeah, it is. Yes, it is. It's what Franklin Delano Roosevelt did. Yes, big social engineering government programs. There's no question about it. I like that they're getting back to their roots and speaking truth to the powers that be.
The powers that be are very unhappy that you're here. They're very unhappy that Bernie is back.
He sounds so weird, like slimy.
Bernie's back, and by the way, if you think he's too old, he's not too old. You know it's too old?
What?
All kinds of other stuff.
So what do they say? Bernie's too old. Bernie's too old. Yeah? Well, here's what's too old. The Electoral College is too old. That's too old.
The Constitution, that's too old. Constitution's too old.
$25 minimum wage, that's too old. Women not being paid the same as men, that's too old. Thousands and thousands of dollars of student debt, what is that? Too old. A $10,000 deductible for your health care, what is that?
Too long.
Super delegates, what's that?
Too
Fossil fuel, what's that? That's what's too old.
Yeah, fossil fuels are too old. They're fossils. They're old.
It's all.
AOC,
Was AOC any better?
Oh, she was fantastic. AOC.
You know me.
Not only at the rally, but she cut a promotional video as well where she's really defined the working class revolution that has to take place.
We need to have a revolution of working class people, and it needs to be multiracial, multigendered, multigenerational. Our future is not going to get better unless we demand it and unless we work for it.
You know, it's too old. The male-female binary gender construct.
Too old.
Thank you, please. Thank you. And AOC offered a little retrospective on all that Bernie has meant to her life, the struggles that Bernie helped her overcome on the road from being a waitress at a taqueria to Congress.
Last February, I was working as a waitress in
a cocktail bar,
Manhattan,
and I met you.
at a
Pick me
taqueria.
up, turn me on.
I worked
Don't you want
shoulder
me,
to
Bernie?
shoulder with undocumented workers
You feel the
who often worked harder and hardest for the least amount of money. I was on my feet working 12-hour days
So what? So did I.
with no structured breaks. I didn't have health care. I wasn't being paid a living wage. And I didn't think that I deserved any of those things. Because that is the script
was a man.
that we tell working people
You think it was a
here
man.
and all over this country. That your inherent worth and value as a human being is dependent on an income that another person decided to underpay us. But what we're here to do is to turn around that very basic logic.
All right, the proletariat revolution started in Queens. Can it carry Bolshevik Bernie the nomination? For more on this topic, Politics 2020, we're pleased to be joined again by David Drucker, senior political correspondent for the Washington Examiner. David, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good to be here. Thank you.
So, big turnout for Bernie. I mean, he's got a loyal following, but it seems increasingly like it's a high floor and a low ceiling, and it's not going to be enough to keep him, in the race past, say, South Carolina.
Right. Well, we don't know exactly when Bernie will drop out because he's got a very loyal base of small donors, and if they keep giving, maybe he stays in the race because the way he sees it. Even if he can't win the primary, this is how he influences policy. Mm-hmm. But I do think you're correct that he has a really high hill to climb to try and win the primary. I think for progressives that want a real ambitious sort of leftism, they're getting that from Elizabeth Warren, who's also younger and more energetic and more dynamic, frankly. There are plenty of choices in this primary. So Bernie Sanders has a loyal following. I've never felt that he is a front runner, but I've never felt that he was in a front running position to win the primary. However, if he were to win Iowa or finish a very close second, something like that, he could roll into New Hampshire, which is, fertile territory for him in many respects, and he could surprise.
You just said Elizabeth Warren, who's younger than him. She's 70 years old.
That's younger.
Yeah, that makes a big difference in presidential politics, though. When you're 78 or 70, I mean, that's a huge difference. She also kind of presents as a young 70. I mean, for what it's worth.
She does.
I mean, she's very dynamic on the trail, which I think is surprising a lot of people because she started out the campaign and it seemed like she was sort of a one-note candidate. And, policy aside, if you've watched her on the stump, I can see a lot of the reasons why many Democrats find her appealing.
Yeah, and it's been interesting as she has risen to sort of perceived frontrunner status. There's been a good deal of concern expressed openly by opinion writers and politicos on the left about her prospects to win if she's the nominee. And so now you're seeing people after the last debate, take another look at Mayor Pete. You're having more chatter about a white knight from stage left appearing. Is Michael Bloomberg going to get in? Is Hillary Clinton going to get in? Is somebody else going to get in? What's your handle on whether or not the field has rounded out, number one, and number two? I mean, could the Democrats actually nominate Mayor Pete if there's enough concern about Elizabeth Warren?
Well, look, I think Pete Buttigieg is a very charismatic candidate. He's this sort of young, charismatic politician that Democrats tend to nominate from time to time. And when Democrats win presidential elections, it's often with candidates like him. I mean, think Bill Clinton, think Barack Obama, think JFK, and so it's sort of a regular occurrence for Democrats. His issue, I've always felt, has just been his age. He is under 40, and I think that's his biggest challenge.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but his age also. He's the mayor of a 100,000 person town.
Right. I don't think that's his biggest challenge, because I think a lot of Americans have concluded that political pedigree doesn't matter as much. I mean, you can look at President Trump. That's an example of that. He was the first person we had elected in modern times, maybe ever, who wasn't at least a general, if not, a cabinet member or elected some previous office of some kind.
Yeah, but success.
So I think for Pete, it's age, but he's running a good campaign and raising a lot of money. I don't see somebody coming out of the blue and getting in like a Bloomberg or anybody else. The organizing starts so early that you can't just parachute in anymore the way you used to. I also don't know how a Bloomberg type would parachute in and somehow steal the heart of the Democratic base.
Right.
Especially when you have Warren running such a good campaign, and she's so organized and she's doing well with that sector of the party. I do think it's possible we will see movement. I think that, let's see how things look at the beginning of January. And it's possible that the front runners will have new company, or that one of the front runners could be replaced by a late-breaking challenger into that field from the existing candidate field. You can't rule that out.
But what about people that are not, declared right now, such as Hillary Clinton? Then you keep hearing rumors about Michelle Obama.
I'll go back to what I just said. Nobody is going to jump in late and somehow, I don't like to use the word steal because everybody thinks rigged these days, but nobody's going to come in and usurp all of the candidates that are running. I mean, maybe one individual in the Democratic Party could do that. His name's Barack Obama, and he's turned out.
Mm-hmm. With respect to Joe Biden, are you of the opinion, as some are, Dan Henninger wrote in the Wall Street Journal last week, Joe's just not going to make it again. He's sputtering, and also too, and this is sort of an underappreciated aspect of this. You were just talking about how much money Mayor Pete is raising and has on hand. Joe Biden, on the other hand, has only a third of the money on hand that Mayor Pete does, and he's spending it seemingly at a faster rate.
Yeah, so Joe Biden has challenges, and I think that, one, he's been, until the debate that just occurred, he was the only one everybody was attacking. Then you have, some of his challenges with raising small donor money, which means he's had to raise money the old-fashioned way, which just takes more time and costs more money to raise per dollar. And then there are existing doubts about Joe Biden. So I am reluctant to predict that Joe Biden will fade because he's been remarkably durable. And there is a market in the Democratic primary for somebody who is center-left versus leftist. Mm-hmm. But, could Joe Biden, could that role be filled by Pete as opposed to Joe? And that's possible. But I'm reluctant to prematurely predict Joe Biden's demise. It doesn't mean I don't think he won't lose for some reason or another. I mean, he very well could lose. I don't know that it would be shocking. But in some ways he's been, especially given his history as never having even been a front runner before when he ran for president, he's been remarkably durable.
What's your handle on Hill Republicans other than Pierre Delecto, a.k.a. Mitt Romney, and their sort of ongoing support for President Trump against the latest impeachment onslaught?
So I know that in the House, they're going to stick with him except for a few. I mean, most of the Republicans that would have had a problem with the information that's been uncovered so far were beaten in 2018. They were from the toughest districts. But there is a lot of frustration with how the White House is handling this and the lack thereof. They would like to see more discipline, and they would like to, not give the Democrats so much fuel. In the Senate, there's no desire to get on Trump's bad side. There's no desire to have a split in the party. And so with a lot of this information, most of them are going to grit their teeth and bear it. But there are some of them that are not pleased, and you will see them speak out from time to time. They're a little bit more open to seeing, the breadth of all of the evidence such that it is or is not by the time the House votes to impeach, which I think it will. And I would say that the Syria policy implemented by the president over the past, 10 days now, has Republicans in the Senate in particular, but in the House as well, very, very unhappy.
Yeah.
They were all willing to voice that unhappiness in the midst of all of this. You don't see that often. And if the president doesn't appreciate exactly how unhappy they are, he's really missing something. They are furious. They're dismayed. They're just beside themselves.
And the impeachment, you think, is likely to happen before year's end?
Oh, they're going to. Yeah, I mean, I get myself into hot water when I make these predictions, which I try not to do. But I don't see how the House doesn't vote to impeach. I don't see how Democrats don't have the votes to impeach based on everything we know and based on what they've said about what we know. And he will not be removed in the Senate, but there will be a trial. Mm-hmm. And the Chief Justice, who's John Roberts, will preside. He will have basically sole discretion over motions. And so it's going to be a rule under the rules of the Senate, the trial under the rules of the Senate that will occur. I don't think you'll get, more than a handful or less of Republicans to vote to remove if you get that. But, these things can cut both ways, right? It's very politically uncertain to be impeached and go through this. I can lay out a scenario where it doesn't hurt the president and maybe hurts Democrats. I can also lay out a scenario where it's to the exact opposite. He doesn't get removed, obviously, but it's very damaging. And then I can lay out a scenario where we end up right back where we started after the Russia investigation, which is everybody believes what they already believed.
Right.
And independents were like, we're not that thrilled, but find me somebody else I can vote for.
But impeachment hurts the country. I mean, the markets will be in disarray, and I
Built
don't
in.
think it's worth it.
Right, and some people agree with you, but some people do. Some people look at the president and they believe that he's causing the same, the same kind of long-term damage that you fear impeachment will, and there are just different opinions out there.
Well, and with respect to impeachment, though, this is interesting. So last week's debate, you had several of the candidates, even the most outspoken anti-Trump candidates, and that's stiff competition on that side, making notes of caution with respect to being all consumed by impeachment. And then you see just over the weekend, I think, Vox.com sends an email out about their new podcast offering, Impeachment Explained. You're not rolling out sort of a new podcast brand if you don't intend on that going for some period of time, significant period of time. And I just wonder if there's some disconnect or uncertainty between left media and some of these left candidates about how all consumed they should be with impeachment, politically speaking.
I don't think there's a disconnect. I think everybody understands that impeachment is a major story, and there's almost no way it isn't the major story until it's over with. And I think Democrats, at least Democrats who are smart, and I think, some of the presidential candidates understand this. Pelosi clearly understands this. Understands there's a risk of, the voters are interested in all sorts of policies and issues that are kitchen table issues, which they always are. And so when you decide to step into the breach here and engage in an impeachment inquiry, you're taking a risk that voters will understand that it's important and that you're still committed to the issues that they care about. I will say, for Democratic voters, I mean, one of the reasons that House Democrats went ahead with this is they have felt pressure from their own voters to do this. So there clearly is an appetite for it from some voters.
Yeah.
I think, over time, Democrats, the biggest challenge they have now is making the case so that the country doesn't think this was a big waste of time, or at least, not a big majority of the country.
Right, and also their own voters in swing states. I mean, I just saw Iowa, a survey, I think it was Morning Consult last week, but anyway, it was a survey suggested, impeachment among self-identified Democrats in Iowa, a swing state, doesn't even rank in the top 4 or 5 issues. So, they need to be careful overreaching even within their voters in swing states.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole ballgame, are swing voters and independents, the persuadables. They actually still matter. They still exist, no matter the focus on base politics on both sides of the aisle. And, whichever way they swing in the election in the critical states, that's probably how the election goes. And they're the whole ballgame.
He is David Drucker, senior political correspondent for the Washington Examiner, WashingtonExaminer.com. David, thanks for joining us.
Anytime, guys. Thank you.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You've made the switch, and it feels so good. You've switched to Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560.